Have you ever wanted to a popcorn bucket? I've been told I have to restart the video. If you've been in a movie theater in the past year, which statistically 76% of you have, what do you 24% of psychos do for fun? You've almost definitely encountered one of these. This is a novelty popcorn bucket for Tron Ares, and unfortunately, it's not Jared Leto's head on a spike. And it's just one of the hundreds of popcorn buckets that AMC and other theaters have sold over the past few years. The first version of this phenomenon you probably remember is the Dune popcorn bucket, which, news to me, was not intended as a sex toy, but it did make something grow. AMC's revenues. These buckets have been a marketer's wet dream. They've created tons of earned media, a community of collectors.
I think I have around 125.
And they're even profitable. But where did they come from? And why popcorn buckets versus another collectible? And finally, who is shelling out $50 to eat popcorn out of Hugh Jackman's mouth? I had to pay a lot more than that. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this in the story of how we got from paper popcorn vessels to Shilizan al-Gaib on my Shai Halud to Laimad Deeb actually starts decades before Dune Part 2 was even a twinkle in Denis Villeneuve's French-Canadian eye. Long before these monstrosities graced the hallowed halls of your local Cineplex, novelty popcorn buckets had their humble beginnings at a small business in Southern California. Disneyland. Since the 90s, Disney parks have been producing these collectible plastic buckets for guests to devour popcorn from and then sell on eBay. They became a staple of Disney collector culture, and over the years, morphed from simple plastic pails with printed designs to complex molded forms of everything from Mickey Mouse to Mickey Mouse at Christmas. But in 2019, everything changed when a man from Australia, the Texas of England, had an idea.
The R2-D2, which was basically the one that sort of changed things.
See, back in 2012, George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, or as he would put it,
I sold them to the white slavers that take these things.
It's a new Star Wars. People love Star Wars. They want to go home with something, and they'll go to shops and spend $500-600 on something to take home. So why can't we do that?
This is Stu, and he works for a creative agency called Zinc. They're responsible for creating many of the most famous movie popcorn buckets over the past 6 years. When Disney approached them about developing some tie-in merch for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, they came to the table with the idea to take the famous popcorn buckets out of the parks.
Now, to convince everybody that the idea was really cool, we went away and developed a 3D print. And as soon as that hit their hands, they were sold.
For the release of that film,
somehow Palpatine returned.
The Zinc team decided to start by modeling a bucket after cinema's most beloved bucket-shaped character, R2-D2.
When we looked at R2-D2 and we thought about doing the popcorn, we just came up with that idea, well, why couldn't we include a drink in that? It just sold out straight away.
So maybe 80,000 pieces in total?
The bucket was a huge success, but then, to be honest, not a lot of movies were released in 2020 for some reason. Revenues for AMC fell from $5.4 billion in 2019 to $1.2 billion in 2020. Regal owner Cineworld saw revenues drop from $4.37 billion to just $852 million. So movie studios and theater companies had a few other things to worry about besides finding their next popcorn bucket success. To try to keep the lights on, AMC, Regal, and other chains started turning on every revenue faucet they could think of. Private theater rentals, event screenings, and sightline pricing, which gave people the privilege of paying more money if they wanted their necks to be comfortable. AMC even started renting out some theaters for church services. But while these efforts helped keep theaters afloat, they barely moved the needle. And so, once again, AMC turned on the butter faucet to put it on top of popcorn in their new Ghostbusters Afterlife Ecto-1 popcorn bucket. It was a modest success, and over the next few years, we got popcorn buckets from movies like The Batman, Avatar: The Way of Water, and of course, The Fabelmans. Every year, AMC sells upwards of 50 million bags of popcorn, and at about $10 a bag, they're making over $500 million annually on popcorn alone. Tapping into the shared culture of popcorn in movie theaters feels like a natural evolution, and it seems audiences agreed. AMC sold all 25,000 of its Barbie convertible popcorn buckets at $35 a piece, generating almost $1 million in revenue from that run alone. But everything changed when those freaks at Zinc decided to strike again with a popcorn bucket that became a viral sensation due to its resemblance to Uranus. Is the 7th planet from the sun. It's a gas giant with a year 84 times longer than Earth's. this has been a science sidebar.
We
Humour.
didn't expect it.
No, and you can't create a viral moment. You have to create with the best integrity and the best intent. And then if it creates a viral moment, awesome.
The team saw them popping up on eBay for hundreds of Australian dollars, which in American money is hundred of dollars. In addition to inspiring a 7 out of 10 SNL sketch, the Dune bucket, or Dunussy, was a watershed moment in AMC's tie-in merchandise business. In the years since, AMC has released well over 100 movie tie-in popcorn buckets, and other chains have followed suit. Regal and Cinemark, as well as other global chains, have started selling the novelty vessels. Why do you think that popcorn buckets have resonated so much with people? What is it about popcorn buckets that makes people want to go to a theater and take that home?
Obviously, it touches into the moment of being in the theatre. So it's taking that standard experience and making that more exciting and making that more special. It's not something that you're going to generally buy at a retail store.
Do you guys have any favorite popcorn buckets you've designed?
Mission Impossible is probably a good example.
You have to put the key together, unlock it, pull the handle up, and unlock it to get into your popcorn.
And then, of course, it also lights up because that's just,
I wish I'd gotten one of those.
Jurassic World, you have to get your popcorn through the mouth of the T-Rex.
This one here, I just brought it up.
You guys did the D&D one?
Yeah, we
Get all
designed
those
that to
icons.
make it look like it was actually made out of dragon.
This one here is kind of fun. It was for How to Train Your Dragon. And he has a stretchy tongue.
And they've done quite well for theaters. Merchandise sales, a large portion of which are novelty buckets and cups, were up 50% year over year in 2024. But who is buying these things? Who has enough room in the studio apartment I assume we all share with 3 roommates to fit them?
I think I have around 125.
This is Clayton, and I found him on the r/popcorn buckets subreddit, a community with over 18,000 weekly visitors.
I first got into collecting the popcorn buckets because, one, just a huge movie goer. I don't think any collection ever starts off looking cool. Once I posted a picture of a bunch, then someone sent me into a community for Reddit that was like, hey, here's a popcorn buckets Reddit thread. I think it's cool too, just when there's communities that get built around things. It's like when people collect Pokemon, where it's like, oh, look at this card I got, it's rare, and you're not you're showing off, but you're so happy to show someone that actually cares.
It's the thought behind a lot of collections. Whether it's sneakers, coins, or DVD copies of Click, a big part of the experience is showing off your collection to other enthusiasts. And if one of the collectors can't get a coveted first-party bucket, like recently happened to many in the community with the Fantastic Four Galactus bucket, they turn to the resale market.
I think the first expensive one I had to go back and get was the Dungeons and Dragons one. And I think I paid a pretty penny, maybe over $100 or something for it.
Look on sites like eBay and you'll see buckets sold for huge amounts, some going for well over $500.
I would say it deters people the more and more the market does that.
One sold listing shows an F1 bucket selling for $14,900, an amount of money which would buy you one set of real Formula One tires. And yes, I did say tires with a Y.
The goal, the dream is if I have a finished basement, it's going to be mostly movie theater. It's going to be the buckets all over, lined up around the entire thing, so it's not just going to be thrown in a room. There is a goal to this at the end of the day.
But not everyone who buys popcorn buckets and other movie merch collects to this scale. In fact, in a recent survey from market research firm A Closer Look, 21% of respondents expressed a strong interest in purchasing exclusive merchandise related to popular movies. And that's an audience that theater chains are capitalizing on. AMC, which now sells merchandise beyond popcorn buckets at nearly all of its locations, went from selling $0 in merch in 2018 to $65 million in 2024. And profit margins on these items can be enormous, as high as 50%. Popcorn buckets may have been the Trojan horse that brought merch into theaters, but they are certainly not the last wave. As movie merchandise sales become a staple part of the business for theaters, we've started to see a massive increase in new product categories. T-shirts, mugs, toys, Funko Pops, hats, stuffed animals. I wouldn't be surprised to see your local AMC lobby starting to look a bit more like a hot topic, finally giving me another place I might be able to buy my Jack Skellington thongs.
When you go to get in line for your popcorn, they've just got that stand, and at first it was a little stand and it had maybe the candy and a few shirts and trinkets. Now they made it almost it's hey, you coming to get your clothes and your thing here?
Even smaller chains and indie theaters are getting in on the action. But since they don't have nearly the latitude to fail that a larger chain like AMC or Regal does, they have to be much more deliberate with the merch they choose to sell. Nobody wants to be left holding the bag when sales don't go well, but it stings even more for a smaller theater who had to choose between selling, say, a Garfield popcorn bucket or a Planet of the Apes one, and chose Garfield. I went to and called over a dozen indie theaters around New York, and more than half of them were selling some sort of movie merchandise. Some locations are happy to sell things tied not to a movie, movie, but to the theater itself. If you want to support your girl Nicole Kidman, you could buy an AMC sweatshirt. And you can get similar items from the likes of Regal, Alamos, or even indie theaters like IFC or Nighthawk. And those might get you more clout among 20-somethings who write on their letterbox all the time. A24 water just tastes better. Are popcorn buckets and movie merchandise going to save movie theaters? No. As of now, they only account for about 1.5% of AMC's revenue, albeit a very profitable 1.5%. But they are a tool in the growing arsenal of things movie theaters are offering outside of movies. As the theater industry tries to stay afloat and grow year over year, additional income streams become more and more necessary, especially in an age when there are fewer moviegoers than there were 5 years ago. Currently, concessions and a nebulous category called other theater make up about 45% of AMC's revenue, up from 40% in 2019. And that number is expected to grow this year. I go to the movies a lot. I'm a card-carrying member of the A-list cult. I have a vested interest in theaters staying afloat. And if popcorn buckets can help them do that, they're not so bad in my book. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a sandworm to fuck.